I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried, will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Mary, I am so excited to have you not only on the network, but also doing a podcast on the network, and especially about some of the topics you're going to discuss. So please say hello to my listeners. Mary Joye, thank you for coming on.
Hello, Kristen. I thank you so much for having me. And I'm very honored and excited to be part of this network. I absolutely adore podcasts myself. I soak up all the information on your network. So it's an honor to share information with the network and with you.
Yeah, there's plenty of people, aren't there, too?
Yes, and plenty of issues.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. I still think back on the days when people would say, don't call your network mental health because no one will tune in.
And I think some of that stigma is lifting. I think COVID helped us with that.
Absolutely. Everybody realizes there's worldwide anxiety. Guess what? That's mental health.
Truly. And I always say that, and there was a Mental Health Parity Act, but I always say that mental health resides in your brain and your brain's in your body. So it's really no different than physical health.
That's right. I love the way that you described that. Well, tell my listeners a little bit about your background.
Well, I am the daughter of a psychiatrist. So right there, I was raised on this and I did rebel. I positively rebelled and I went into songwriting. I went to the music business. Out of college, I worked for KISS for 3 years as a makeup and wardrobe assistant. So there was some good mental health foundation there. But I discovered that as a songwriter, because I worked for them for 3 years, and then as a songwriter, I went to Nashville, and it was very authentic for me to do that because I was helping people get in touch with their feelings. And I was writing at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers sold to AOL. I had to reinvent. So it was very natural for me to help people get in touch with their feelings as a mental health counselor. So I think I do the same thing. And even though people say it's not with music, well, I do guided meditations with music, and I have a piano and a guitar in my office if people play. And sometimes I will do songwriting therapy. So it was more of a return to authenticity. And I absolutely adore what I do to help people. I adore it.
I always think it's so fascinating, people's path, to what they end up doing. And many people have multiple different, career paths, but sometimes you have to take those sideways things where you have no idea at the time how that's going to help you with the next thing that you do, until you have some distance to be able to look back and go, oh yeah, I see the breadcrumb trail here.
Yes, and you see that. I call it the golden thread. There's a golden thread between, because I always say detours are not dead ends, they're just places to slow down and turn around. So I thought about going to law school, and I said, "Oh, I'm not a fighter, and that's not what I want to do for a living." So you just find your genuine path by taking detours. In fact, the first podcast I did for your network is about reinvention intervention, about what's authentic for you. Even if you think it's impossible, you can take one tiny step toward it, and things just will start to unfold as you allow it to do that. Your life, nobody really is broken, or we all have life events that happen to us, but we can evolve through them and learn because of them. Maybe not by them, but because of them.
Right, exactly. Well, tell our listeners the name of your podcast. I know you wrote a book or a workbook as well.
Yes, I have written 4 courses for dailyom.com. That's dailyom.com. Those are e-courses that are very interactive. They're very affordable. I've written one about codependency, loneliness, how to accept your ex with another, and one about becoming whole again. I did write a book called Codependent Discovery and Recovery 2.0, a holistic approach to healing and freeing yourself. I was a recovered codependent as the daughter of a psychiatrist, as I mentioned, and working for 4 rock stars and saying, yes, sir, a lot. I think I was just a burgeoning codependent, and not until I got to graduate school when I was 45 did one of my professors tell me I was codependent. And I said, no, I'm just nice. And she said, no, you're going to lose yourself taking care of others. They're going to eat you alive. And she was right. And she knew it because she was one herself. She was a daughter of an alcoholic, and she knew some of the abuse I went through as a kid and in a marriage. And she really encouraged me to dig deeply into this subject because she was a neuropsychologist. And then I just made it my passion, not just to help people with general mental health issues, but to set people free from codependency and to know what it is, but more importantly, what to know to do about it.
Right, exactly. And the name of your show
is Mental Health Discovery and Recovery, much like the book. The reason I like that is because I like to do a little emotional archaeology. There's you can get analysis paralysis, but I'm a solution focused therapist. And if we don't look at the past, we can't make connections between the present, and we can't get you moving toward a future. So, and as I've mentioned, and I mentioned in my podcast, that the rearview mirror is very small, and the side mirrors are a reference guide to what we don't want to repeat. So you can change lanes successfully. Conversely, if you drive just through the windshield, you're going to go too fast and never look back and not resolve issues. So I'm teaching people, you look past in the past just enough to gain the information you need to learn from it, process it, and move forward. So I'm not going to just help people discover narcissistic abuse being an obvious subject. And I'm just not going to talk about the narcissist and how awful they are and vent. I'm going to help you reinvent from narcissistic abuse, not just how do you feel about it? What can you do about it? Not how does that make you feel, but how do you want to feel, and how can I help you get there?
Right, exactly. That's so important. I know, there are different stages of getting through any kind of trauma like that. And one of them is, the venting part, but that, listeners, that is supposed to be a short-term thing. Like as soon as you need to vent, you need to start looking at it like that's in the rearview mirror, because a
Yes.
lot of people get stuck there and then they can't move forward. And, some of that is, neuroscience. Their brain has been hotwired, gaslit into, trauma bonded into staying stuck there because that's where the narcissist lives. But, we're the ones that can get out of that and actually have it in the rearview mirror.
Oh, so beautiful, because they can't and you can. And I think so many people get stuck studying all about narcissism and not realizing there's ways out, not just from narcissism, but anxiety, any kind of depression. There are ways out. And I always say that adversity begets creativity, and no therapy is a one size fits all, but everybody can start focusing on solutions instead of problems. And all of a sudden, just that next right thing, what can I do today? What can I do this moment to take one little tiny step forward to break away from anything that is negative and move toward the positive? It's not about just thinking positively it's about doing something positive with negative things.
Right. Exactly. It's hard to see that though, when you're the thing that I've been through myself, and I'm watching a very close family member go through as well, is how much fear is involved. And some of it is your fear and your wounds that the person, the disordered person that came into your life expertly knew how to mine and use against you. And so what I see happen with the legal system, with therapists, it's much better now, but years ago when I first went through this, was just a lack of understanding about how much you're really deprogramming someone from a cult experience.
Oh, beautifully put. You really are. You get conditioned by repetition, and you get unconditioned by repetition. You have to practice thinking healthy thoughts to override the unhealthy thoughts. There is a Hebbian principle, and it's Donald Hebb, and he said that whatever fires together wires together. And our neurons in our brain are a lot like electrical impulses. So if you have guilt that's wiring together with something that you went through as a child, then you're going to just feel guilty every time somebody asks you to do something you don't want to do, and you're going to do it without knowing why you're doing it. You're doing it out of guilt. And codependents are run by a fear of abandonment, and narcissists are run by a fear of abandonment. Now, those are subconscious fears, but do you see how they wire and fire together in a couple so often? Because there's one who loves to be given to and one who likes to take control, and the other one likes to please.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the push-pull, I try to explain, just because I've been through this already. Okay, every time you give any kind of emotion to a situation with this person that's been abusing you, you're giving them food. You're giving them the heroin that they require because they're addicted. You're addicted to giving it to them. And they're addicted to getting it from you. So if you can move to a place where you just get through that breakup or whatever it is, getting out of this relationship without with giving them just as little bit of that heroin and then none at all, that's actually not that you're out to hurt someone, but I've seen that actually hurts them more than, saying mean things or, whatever it is when you try to break up with someone and you are not trying to hurt them usually, but that is what bothers them the most, is when you have no reaction. But it's so hard to do
difficult.
that. Yeah.
So difficult. And, there's physiology to it. And when I tell people about the physiology of it, it kind of sets them free. It kind of takes that guilt factor off and that feeling that they're responsible for it and accountable for it, because we have something in our body called a vagus nerve. It's VAGUS. And so when we go into fight, flight, or frozen or fawning, trying to chase after the narcissist that may have discarded us, or we want to discard him or her and we can't seem to do it, that the autonomic nervous system is that fight, flight, or frozen. The vagus nerve kicks in and it doesn't know the difference between fear and excitement. So I teach people, instead of being afraid of what the narcissist is going to do, can you change that vagus nerve response? Because it's what makes your heart pound or your chest get tight or your stomach, because it goes all the way through your face and down through your vital organs. Can you look at this instead of fear of what this person is going to do, to excitement of saying, well, it's going to be interesting to see what tactic they take when I start to detach or I start to get healthier. Instead of looking at them with fear, you start looking at it with faith in yourself, and you lower your expectations of them as you raise your expectations of yourself. And as you educate yourself about the physiology of it, there's a biological reason when they're nice to you, you get dopamine, oxytocin, which is a trust hormone, and you get vasopressin, you get serotonin. Conversely, when they discard you, you get cortisol and adrenaline, and you chase after the person who hurt you. And there goes the trauma bond. So when you realize what's operating chemically, it makes it easier psychologically when you understand something, because knowledge really is power. And to get your power back, because you do not want to give a narcissist euphoric reactions. Kristen, that is what they do. They get euphoric when you're upset.
Yes.
And anyone who's ever been in a fight with a narcissist, they get really calm after you fight with them.
They do.
They know you're attached.
I've watched one who everywhere this person goes, there is drama, trauma, their entire life. This has been going on. And when they are inflicting that and bringing their drama, they actually become still and quiet like a Buddhist and start humming and singing.
Yes, they get happy. So do you really want to make them happy? And you mentioned something earlier that really means something. I bookmarked it in my head because no, you're not really hurting them. I tell clients all the time, you are not correcting them. You are protecting yourself. And it's a very different semantic. And it's a very uplifting shift of thinking, because you're going to pay attention to your tension when you're around them. And then you change your intention from correcting them to protecting yourself. Because just don't argue with one. You just have to make statements with them. They're if you argue with them, they set you up for a lose-lose. It's just never going to stop.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's why, you've probably heard of the gray rock method.
I have. And I like even more than a gray rock method. I think it's very confusing. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the movie Madagascar, because just going silent you're just going to, that vagus nerve is going to kick off. The fear is still going to be there. You haven't reprocessed it to the positive. But the penguins from Madagascar, if anyone's seen it, I hope they have. I can just explain it. They would get away with everything just by smiling and waving. I remember when people cut me off in traffic, I don't get mad at them. I just smile and wave, and it confuses them, and they get really nice all of a sudden. So when you confuse the enemy, because narcissists feel like an enemy, but when you confuse them with a smile, you're getting dopamine. They're changing their behavior, and you're teaching them a boundary through a very positive mirror neuron exercise of, you can't bother me. I'm going to be happy. Your opinion of me does not affect my opinion of me. And when you go beyond gray rock, just into smiling and waving, kind of like presidents do when they leave a press room, they smile and wave and say, no more questions. And they smile and wave and they walk out, and they don't turn back around. They just walk away. And the press is still screaming and hounding them, but they've been trained by social psychologists. Don't turn around. Don't walk back. Don't answer one more question. Just go in the Oval Office and be at peace.
Right. Oh, that is such good advice. I love that. Beyond the gray rock. Exactly. Because yes, they're tripping every one of your triggers because that's what they're good at. And I've looked at this like, okay, there is some data about me, some wounds about me that this person was able to, root around in and utilize and get me all worked up about. That's my gift of a lesson for me to heal those wounds, let them be shiny scars, and then no one's going to get access like that again. And, you kind of have to beat them at their own game, except that you're winning and you're not really beating them because, like you said, you are retraining yourself to be happy and at peace. They're humming as chaos is going on. If you can get to that place where you're humming, not because you're humming at the atrocities you're doing to someone, but just you're humming because you're at peace, whether they're there or not, that is called winning. Not that I want to quote Charlie Sheen.
No, absolutely. And there's really not about winning. It's about keeping your peace, which is winning.
Yes. That's right.
Gee whiz, you have to fight for peace sometimes. And fighting for peace means not with the other person. It means fighting the battle within yourself to reduce those trauma triggers, make a connection between the past and present. Almost always there's a caregiver or an adolescent relationship that got you involved with someone who's narcissistic. Yes. If you look back, you may have had an emotionally unavailable parent, an alcoholic or addicted parent, an abusive parent. Siblings, I went through some of that as a kid, or you had to be part of your family image. Like I discussed earlier, if you're a psychiatrist kid, it's like being a preacher's kid. You can't have anything wrong with you. You have to smile and wave for your whole life and be perfectly fine. Even if you're falling apart and the whole world is caved in, you still have to just, present yourself as completely fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And it's not always possible. So when you really win, when you're just yourself. And I tell people, because when I tell someone who's with a narcissist, they go, you're asking me to change myself. I said, no, I'm asking you to be truly you. Because if you're truly you, you can set yourself free. When you just look at a narcissist and go, I won't tolerate your criticism anymore and never raise your voice Because if you don't raise your voice, your vagus nerve won't kick off because it gets, the startle reflex from hearing your voice raised. You just say, I won't tolerate this anymore. You set a boundary, put your hand in front of your face, smile, and just say, we're not going to have this discussion right now. Even if they keep yelling at you, simply walk away. A boundary is about taking your gate back. It's not a fence to keep you in. Not a fence to keep them out. It's a fence to keep you safe and in, and just shut the gate.
I love that. And wow, that takes internal work on your part to, to do that. Oh my
to
gosh,
discover where you may have
work.
had a root in childhood and to open the gate on your childhood and then shut it and know it's there and be aware of it. Because those trauma triggers, they're almost always, when they're intense, they're usually related to something from your childhood. Also, instant attractions. I always tell people, beware of instant attractions.
Yeah.
Please beware of them. That's usually, if you had an unhealthy childhood, that may be reenactment, and the brain seeks the familiar, and the root word of familiar is family. So watch out for that.
Oh, that's so true. I used to think every sociopath on the planet was like the most attractive person ever. And it took me, because my father was one, talk about a wound. And
Yes.
I learned I had to go through so much in order to do what you talk about that you do with clients. Okay, so when I feel that feeling that feels like excitement and instant attraction, I had to learn how to make that be, okay, danger. This does not feel good. This is not good. And pull myself out of the addiction of what that kind of attraction, quote unquote, triggered in me.
Yes, it's dangerous. And, I didn't learn this stuff in a textbook either. When I discovered I was codependent, my father, the psychiatrist, I asked him one day why he was so mean. And he said, well, I'm a full blown narcissist and I have no intention of changing, which he actually did later in life. He had a heart attack and he turned to a big pile of mush, and he was very nice. But my mom was like that too, very controlling, maybe not a narcissist, but definitely controlling and chaotic. And I always liked peace. And I had a brother that was that way too. And I was the baby. So I was just trying to make everybody happy. And I'm sure that's why I went into show business to begin with, because I can make everyone happy. There's no people like show people. They smile when they're low. A lot of people think everyone in show business is a narcissist. No, they're not. I mean, look at the Johnny Depp trial we've been seeing. He suffered abuse as a child, and he's under oath. So I'm going to take him at his word. The abuse he suffered as a child is somebody, narcissists are not necessarily actors, because these children have to become someone else. And so they become very good actors because they've been acting in their family dynamic for years to keep everyone happy and at peace so they don't get hurt. So that was kind of what happened to me. And then I realized, I said, I can just be myself and I'll be fine with that. And to be open. And this is what I love about the Mental Health News Radio Network and everyone on it and people that contribute to it. Everybody's getting more honest these days about what has happened to them. It takes the stigma off. Do not keep the family secrets. We are always protecting the perpetrator. And I'm married to narcissists. I'm like, wow, I learned very quickly the second time, but the first time, 20 years, the second time, very brief. Just a quick annulment. And, when you realize it and you are conscious of your subconscious, then you can have more compassion for other people and help them out. If I kept that secret, I don't think I would be as good of a therapist, because I always tell people my counseling chair is not a throne. I didn't learn this in a textbook. And you can get on the other side of it. You really can, just by being conscious of your subconscious. You recognize and neutralize your triggers, and you move forward by learning from what you went through in the past.
Yeah. And boy, what it takes for a highly empathic, highly sensitive person that was raised in trauma and became totally codependent, what it takes for that person to have boundaries and healthy boundaries is Herculean.
Yes, it is. I was that person. I am a HSP, highly sensitive person, empathic. I do like the term highly sensitive person. And for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what that is, empathic people through mirror neurons, they just don't feel for people. They feel with people.
Yeah.
If someone's angry in the room, you're going to feel anger. If someone's sad, you're going to feel their sadness. It's one thing to have empathy for people, but highly sensitive people feel their feelings. So those boundaries, you have to keep your personal space very tight. And I have a lot of guided imagery exercises that I help people do that with. I tell them surround themselves in light and then pull that light in tighter, like little sparkly lights, like things that protect you. Because when you pull it in tighter, it gets brighter. So it kind of keeps them in a bubble. And if visual aids don't work, I use other tools. But yes, it really is more difficult for empathic people and highly sensitive people to keep their boundaries clear and clean. And most of it is you need to be alone. You need to have some solitude to get back in touch with yourself.
I'm helping a family member go through a divorce to someone who has a personality disorder, definitely on the narcissism scale. And the person getting the divorce is highly empathic. And it's interesting to be where I'm at with this, which is nowhere near perfect at all, of course, but to be not the one, in front of the firing line. I'm the helper outer of getting someone else out of the firing line, and to watch all this stuff go on and realize just how much strength it actually takes to care for yourself, to not fall into the trap of what they're laying for you, to have a roadmap of this is how they're going to behave. Try to look at it like it's a party trick so that you don't get emotional, blah, 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 blah. It's very interesting to be that secondary person in something like this too.
Yes, it is. And it also teaches you that what you've been through is helping someone else out. That is not codependency. That's compassion. And that's knowledge. You are you're mentoring them and you're coaching them through something that they believe is insurmountable and impossible. People get suicidal going through a divorce because they don't see any other way out. And I always try to put a date to it because I'm also a family court mediator, and I help people make agreements. And it's very difficult with a narcissist. Usually it goes straight to the judge. That's just, usually it does. But sometimes you can reach partial agreements. And I focus on that common ground. If possible. But when people are right in the thick of a divorce, the severance of that, nobody wants a divorce, but if you're married to a narcissist or a sociopath, you need a divorce.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a failed marriage, but sometimes you need one. And always, if you are going through a divorce, seek help from somebody you can really trust, like you, Kristen, or people that really have been through something that understand, because sometimes your attorney just doesn't. And I tell people to listen to their attorneys. And I also tell attorneys to listen to their clients. And I think a lot more attorneys are getting more aware of narcissism and spousal abuse. That stigma is also being lifted up. We've had a lot of motion forward in that area where attorneys are going, okay, their battered woman syndrome isn't really a disorder. It's called post-traumatic stress disorder. That's what it really is. These people have been in marriages that are so verbally, mentally, and physically exhausting and abusive that they're getting PTSD and they can't think straight. And I think a lot of the laws are changing.
That's been real interesting navigating the attorney process, because I foolishly thought, well, they're an attorney and they deal with divorce. They know what it's like to deal with a narcissist or a sociopath or whatever and how to handle them. And instead it's, well, you need to just, do this or that because blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, do you not realize that we have been dealing with that for 5 years and it hasn't worked? So I watch them become advocates for the sociopath.
Unwittingly, they can, because they really they don't believe the depths, because, oh my goodness, can a narcissist adapt? And they're very adept at adapting and pretending to be Dr. Jekyll when they're really Mr. Hyde. And I always tell people there is no Dr. Jekyll. There's only Mr. Hyde. The real one is the mean one. They're manipulative. and they're just awful. And attorneys sometimes can't see through it. And I do see more of that. Now, as mediators, we're trained to see through that. I really appreciate that. If we see coercion, or if we feel that there's abuse, we can ask if they feel coerced. You have to remain neutral, but also, if you see something, this is what I love about collaborative law. Florida has the ability to do that where I am. Other states are developing it too. There's many states. We don't just have that. There's adversarial divorce here too. But the beauty of it is they have 2 mental health counselors, 2 attorneys, a judge. You don't go into court. It's not like a trial, a defense trial, like we're seeing in so many court cases on TV. It is a collaborative effort to help people reach a decision and sever that marriage in equitable ways without all the drama and the trauma and the legal fees. It's done very quickly. And it's hard to do it with a narcissist, but sometimes with a good judge and a good attorney working with a mental health counselor, they can see that, do you really want to spend $300,000 to save $3,000 on a couch?
Right.
I mean, does the vendetta mentality really need to go on anymore? So
And
sometimes you can appeal to them.
And what's fascinating is they will manipulate a situation to where, okay, so if you now are saying, fine, you can have everything, don't care, just want you out of my life, then they'll turn around and flip it and ask for the exact opposite of what they were just fighting for, because they want to keep this drama going.
Yes, they like to keep you engaged because you're fuel for them. Again, it's that euphoria. It's fuel. They don't have, boy, I'll tell you that narcissistic abuse in a divorce, that is a lot of fuel. That's a lot of euphoria.
Oh yeah.
You really enjoy your pain. That old word schadenfreude is taking pleasure from someone's pain. They're very, very masochistic. But, I know they don't have any empathy, but I learned something when I was writing my book. I learned 2 things: that codependency was a form of self-harm. I had to take responsibility for that, not accountability, because accountability means you beat yourself up, but responsibility is taking part in that. I also learned by talking to narcissists and doing marriage counseling and seeing it from a different perspective, not from a wounded healer perspective, but from a healer who was wounded and got better.
Right.
That narcissists don't even have empathy for themselves.
Right.
They don't ever look through the windshield. They just live in the moment. And they are absolutely unable to see the future of being lonely, of having nobody else for fuel. They don't look ahead to that. I noticed that they don't even have empathy for themselves. And you mentioned sociopaths. They see a liquor store, they want to rob it, they go in and rob it. It never occurs to them they might get arrested or be on a video camera.
Right.
Because they live in the moment. So I think they lack empathy even for themselves. I think that prefrontal cortex that tells you right, wrong, yes, no, good, bad, I think it's so impaired in some way. And it's different. There's a scale to sociopathy, and there's narcissistic personality disorder, or there's just people that are narcissistic. But I do notice they lack empathy even for themselves. So hopefully, if someone even thinks they're a narcissist out there and they're listening to this, have some empathy for yourself and just be nice to people. The real one, be nice. Just be nice. You can change too.
Right. Exactly. It is possible. Yes. Well, oh my gosh. Obviously, we could talk about this forever. I definitely want to have you come on again. And there are other people on the network that are going to be really excited to talk to you as well. I love it when I hear new information about this topic, because there's so much out there, which is great. But on the other side, some of it is just the same old thing. So you gave me new information, which is terrific. And please tell my listeners where they can find out more about you.
Well, I'm easy to find because my name is spelled differently. So it's Mary Joye, Joye. It has an E on the end. And I'm at winterhavencounseling.com. Again, you can find me on dailyohm.com, and my books are on Amazon. And I look forward to hearing from anybody and any comments. I also have a YouTube channel where in my book, at the end of every chapter is a meditation. You do not have to do them yourself. They're loaded right up there for you. I used my own songwriting ability. I played the music. I did the meditation. You just shut your eyes and they're right there on YouTube, and they're done in chapters. So it's very easy to find. So there's many ways to find me, and it's Mary Joye, Joye.
I love it. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining the network and coming on my show.
Oh, thank you, Kristen. I'm so honored and excited to do this. I really am. I love to share to help people. Yes, you can change. You have neuroplasticity. Everyone can change. That's why I'm going to cover a lot of different topics, because I just believe that we're going to discover what's going on and operating, and we're going to help them recover by reframing it and regaining their sense of agency and safety.
Fantastic. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. I know you're going to want to know all about this show. It's on our network, and we will leave more details in the description of the show.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristen Sananta Walker, and thank you for listening.
Me tonight, and I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me. Till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Good boy.
All right, Mary, that was so good. I
Oh, thank you,
love
Kristen.
these discussions. Oh my gosh. Yeah, these are for a while I had to not talk about the topic for my own, healing. Like, I'm done. And
Yes,
that's why
I
I
do
was
understand.
yeah, like other podcasters, like, okay, good, you take over the mantle. I can't, or you have your own mantle, like go, 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 because I just can't do it anymore. And